can hear in the distance, so you're good?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll begin with the pledge of allegiance.
Back to Joe, go to the Dilla,
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, thank you all for being here this evening. Any changes, adjustments to the agenda? I got a couple things to add.
Mortgage.
I have one. Oh, the mayor has that.
Oh, he does?
It's
Okay.
on his list. Yes,
Okay,
thank
I
you.
want to be sure.
Thank you.
So, 5 and 6 are just gonna be reversed on the agenda. And then right after that, we will do 6A for the Franklin Street Bridge Grant. And then the 6B will do a grant request discussion. And then we'll do other trustee updates or before that, 6C will do the solicitor's permit. We'll just get them all over
Right.
under a solicitor's permit that came in later than the agenda.
So 6B?
6C, so six will be the adoption of the budget. 6A will be the Franklin Street Bridge, because we'd like Bobby to give us some maybe information about that. 6B will be the grant request discussion. 6C will be the solicitor's permit. And 7 will be any other trustee updates that anybody has to talk about, and then we will. So our meeting minutes from April 14th, a week ago this evening, it was in regards to the budget and the public hearing on the budget. Mostly of the discussion.
Second.
Motion seconded, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And our abstract number 20 dated today in the amount of $224,605.89. Moved
Second.
and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Move on, we'll begin with the fire department.
That was quick.
Yeah.
So I have a municipal agreement on there with Manlius. I put a sheet on your desk. Everybody has this. So what this is for is, it's new management software that we've been researching for a while. The vendor gave us a deal if we did it jointly, kind of ironic. Otherwise we would have paid the full price. They're creating like 2 stations somehow, and they don't see our stuff and we don't see their stuff, but they're independent. So they save $16,000 by doing that. I'm all right with that. So collectively,
That Village of Millions?
Village of Aliens, yes. Collectively, we spend $15,877 on everything we're gonna do for $14,900. And it's under one umbrella instead of, as you see the chart, 6 or 7 different companies we deal with. So one username, one password. It's a lot easier for everybody. And the software is really, really user friendly. So
Can you explain the savings again? I don't.
yeah, so I knew.
I thought it was good.
So at the bottom, it says Fayetteville 14.9.
Right,
Okay, so that's what we're gonna pay for first due.
what's
Or-
first two?
That's the new software we want to get.
Okay,
If you go across the bottom, 809 is I am responding, that's what we pay.
these are other softwares?
Yeah.
That you already have?
Yes,
Okay,
and if you go all the way to the end of it, it
Yeah.
says, so that's what we pay collectively for all of those.
for everything but first two.
Correct,
No.
yes,
Would-
for everything but first due.
So first due is collectively everything else. So we don't have first due for anything.
No,
First due out of Austin, Texas.
Is first,
replace.
can we stay together on this?
I apologize.
Is first due then replacing everything else?
all but one.
Which one?
That's not on here. Our training software is
That's
not, it's not on here
Okay,
because it wasn't relevant to the replacement of the software.
so we're looking at the difference of 15,877 and 14,900.
Right, we're saving $977.
Okay,
First due out of Austin, Texas.
And we deal with a guy out of Boston.
I know, but company itself, I believe, is out of Boston. I wonder if the same,
Garden City, New York.
okay, gotcha. Different one than I was thinking. Okay, thank,
So this is, this savings is also because we are going to enter into an MOU with the Village of Manlius.
Yes, so
And is it just for the software that we're doing the MOU?
correct. Yep. Just, they've approved theirs. So that I had everything in line to have Mike sign the software tonight, so
These are the signed documents from Manlius, so we had to make sure they were signing on before we
Yes.
approved it on our end.
So
So we
then
weren't left out there hanging.
the softwares that we currently are using, we're just gonna stop using them?
correct, they all have their, a lot of these. Are on 30-day notice. One of them, we've already, the 809, we've already paid for. In January, so it ends in January. So throughout the course of the year, we won't be re-upping any of these programs. So,
Mike, are we doing this in approval by our attorney for reading the contracts?
Oh, what?
Are we doing this in lieu of the attorney approval of the contract also?
Ted looked at
That's not
this,
here.
right?
You looked
Or
at it?
did we?
Okay.
yep,
Want to make sure.
Yeah,
we're-
I believe he did. I thought we had that.
this one, he looked at the first due contract. The MOU is, their lawyer, Manlius's lawyer reviewed the MOU, same company. It's just a standard MOU.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
I mean, if anybody wants to see it, I can share it
I
with you, but I
understand. I
mean,
was just
it's
trying to make
not-
sure where we were with it. That's
Yeah,
all.
it's pretty.
Pretty
something.
basic standard.
Yeah.
Then Manlius.
Can I ask you another question?
Yep.
And this is only on my mind because we just spent a lot of time on the budgets. And so would the 15,877 cost, was that factored into the budget?
Yeah, because
So
we're,
so this is already in savings once we're
for
done.
next year, because we're already paying the 15,877. And the reason why I did this is because we never have this big of expenditure on our software at once.
Yeah.
Normally, you
It's
pay each one of these throughout the course of the year.
Every month or every year.
Yeah.
For the 5 or 7 different softwares.
Yep. So by having to do this all one big chunk, we needed to go like this and get it approved and have it
But it's also gonna, I imagine, saves a lot of steps on your end.
a lot of time, a lot of time,
That's worth noting though, too.
100%. Password remembrance is a big savings of time for people.
There you go.
The worst is when you buy software to remember your buy an app to remember your passwords and then you can't remember the password for the app.
Facial recognition is a great thing on your phone.
No, it's not.
Everything is
Right.
good while it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. That's it. So a motion for the mayor to sign this municipal cooperation agreement with the Village of Manlius regarding software.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
So the second part of that is to enter an agreement with First Due for the total of $29,800.
And Manlius takes care of that difference.
That's what we just took care of. Yep.
But we're gonna hold the full contract and
Yep.
Manlius is just gonna pay us. Is
Yep.
that gonna be a one-time payment?
In July, we have to pay ours by July, so they have to pay us before July.
Okay. So moved.
Moved and seconded, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I have 3 dorm students to get approved. First one is Maggie Sweeney. She is from Cornwall on the Hudson. And it'll be our first female dorm student. So she's good to go. I got a letter from her chief down in, I don't even know what department it is. It's gotta be Cornwall on the Hudson. Well,
Here, because or something?
yeah, yep, it's down by Poughkeepsie.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded, any other questions for him? All in favor?
The second one is James Rector. He's from Rhinebeck, New York. This gentleman is a little older. He's 22, just got out of the military. And is enrolled in OCC for next year's fire protection. So bring a little stability with our next group.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And the last one is Sarah Herzog, second female dorm student. And she's from Krogan, New York.
Where?
Krogan,
Up north.
north. Cheese. Cheese, yeah, bologna. Bologna.
I hope she brings you some baloney.
Well, I don't know. I just hope she does a good job. So moved.
Moved and seconded, any other
Aye.
questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Uh,
You need,
next we have DPW. Jane and Bobby, who are, okay,
So the only thing for purchases is the annual treatments that we do through Bartlett. It's the treatments for all the trees at the village hall, down in Limestone Plaza, the Christmas trees. We pay for that twice a year. So we'll do the first round, probably the next couple weeks, and then the next round towards the fall. And then the other half of the treatments, we started last year, the treatments of the bricks at Beard Pond, down in Limestone Plaza, around the village hall here.
we do anything on the bridge or no?
Yes, and the Route 5 bridge.
That where the bricks are on the bridge,
Yep.
between the sidewalk and the curb.
Yeah, so same thing, those are annual treatments. They do it twice a year, so. The quotes are for the full treatment, so we'll only pay for half this budget season, and then the other half is next budget season, and they go under parks, so. I just need approval for
What's the amount?
I don't
We don't have
read
it.
each one. It's roughly.
No, just kind of be, maybe even a ballpark.
Yeah, vaguely
Whatever
that.
Lori needs through the
It's
minutes.
vaguely $7,000 total.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
It's vaguely $7,000 total. Like I said, it'll be 3,500 this budget season and then 3,500.
And if you remember last year, we kind of did this outside of a meeting and then formalized it at a meeting because we came up upon the time when they wanted to do the treatments. So this year we're getting a little bit ahead of that, so we can do it properly.
Want to try to get ahead of it before Memorial Day, so we don't get the growth on the bridge before we can get to it.
So there was some discussion Bobby and I had about this treatment relative to the senior center. There's some areas around the senior center that if not well cared for, can just look like a mess quickly. And one of them is the memory garden. It's not clear to me who has the authority to treat the memory garden. It's our land, but it's,
I can reach out to somebody from there to see if they have any intentions of doing something like that
Or if
and
they
the
would-
funds to do that, and then see what I'm told, and then we can bring it back to the next meeting and decide whether we would want to do something like that or whatever.
well, the reason I'm bringing this up is because Bobby and I were there to look at the community garden first. And
Hmm.
then, of course, the cottage, which is coming along very nicely. And we needed to discuss how we're gonna do entrance to the cottage, which, you know, you start connecting things then, and
Right.
it would be unfortunate if we cared for a certain portion of that area while another portion just, you know, was left to its own.
I believe they have some funds, so I will ask them about
Okay,
that. or
I know
what
they try to
they-
care for it. I'm not trying to say that
Right.
they don't, but
They usually have a cleanup.
I know that
too.
they tend to need more than
Yeah,
what
I
they do.
agree.
So
agree.
if
The,
they,
the bricks and the, what you were talking about with the bricks or between the bricks
Yeah.
seems to be sometimes neglected a little bit more than the beds that are surrounding the.
well, the bricks show more because you
Right.
see it growing up in between the bricks, but then you look at the beds and they're just the same. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. I just wanted to mention that
I'll reach out to them, have a
Yeah.
conversation, and then tell them what our plans are, basically,
okay,
and then see how that can be coordinated,
Okay.
and then we'll talk about it
Yeah,
at the
that's
next
fine.
meeting. Okay. So motion to approve the treatment of the bricks and the trees that we do annually.
So
second,
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
right?
Alright, and then we're continuing to do parks cleanup, everything's been edged and weeded, which weeding will be an endless cycle for a while now. But we started mowing and mulching last week, so everything will be prepped and ready for Memorial Day. The water got turned on down at the Canal Landing bathroom, so those will open May 1st, just like always. The new urinal should be installed tomorrow or Wednesday, so that should be all set. And then in terms of sidewalks, 204 East Genesee Street, should be completed on Wednesday. That's when the concrete truck's coming. So as long as weather cooperates, that section should be done. And then, we're starting to kind of compile a list of smaller patchwork that we can, tackle throughout the spring and summer. I know one of the next ones that we're gonna try to tackle is up by O'Brien and Gear. Some of that section of Route 5 is pretty bad, so, we'll try to just do some spot patching of sidewalks as we get going here. And then the only
Could
other,
I stop you there for a minute?
Yeah.
I was up there and looked at that. If the grocery store ever goes through.
Yep.
There's always a lot of injury to sidewalks when construction takes place.
Yep.
So I understand, I've been up there, the sidewalks are,
yeah,
but I'm nervous.
I'll try to avoid the entryways. I'll probably just do like where there's grass. That
Yeah.
way we're not
Sometimes
contending
the
with dump
entryways-
trucks and,
Construction projects. So.
yeah, I mean, we can avoid that property if the board wants to.
No,
altogether.
yeah, I didn't say that. I just said,
Just for the time being,
I am nervous about
Yeah.
it though.
I mean, you still have to ensure the safety of people utilizing the sidewalks. That's the
Yeah.
other part to make up.
So my recommendation is, you're right, but that when we have heavy construction, the sidewalk tends to take a hit. But we can let whoever does the construction know that if the sidewalk takes a hit, they have to replace it. You just, they're gonna do so much construction up there.
We've tried that before too.
I know.
It's
but
good
we
luck.
Well, we can look at it, I think.
Yeah.
I am sure.
In the meantime, I think we have to do what we have to do. And
You're
then
not gonna
we
wanna
will see.
open up a brand
where
new
we-
grocery store with a crumbling sidewalk, so.
Right.
and then the only other thing that I have is, I know you guys talked about it last week a little bit, is, hiring Andrew Compo back, full-time. He was with us for like a year and a half or 2 years, a couple years ago. And then went to Aqua, and now he's looking to come back full-time. So I'd like to bring him in at full contractual rate for a maintenance worker. He'll start no later than May 12th. He's still working through his current employer as to when his end date will be officially. So I'm hopeful that it might be next week, but the 12th would be the latest that he would start.
So
And we do that, he's gonna come back on probationary for like a year, right?
Yep,
Or
yep.
whatever. So like a brand
Based
new
on the
hire, even though we worked
Yep.
towards before.
What are you putting him in?
He'll be a maintenance worker.
He has a CDO. so-
Yeah, what amount of money?
The union
The
contract, the
union,
full
the
rate.
union amount.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, okay.
Yep.
I'll second that.
It's going in there.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Any other questions for DPW?
I'm good right now.
Okay.
Did you finally get the dead fish out of this?
Yes,
Okay,
it's fun.
so next we have,
Do you happen to know where the sign is that from the corner of Route 5 and High Bridge where we had a fat little sign?
It's at our shop right now.
You have it?
Yep,
it was
Can we put
deteriorated.
it back?
Possibly, but it was deteriorated to the point where it had to come down.
a bunch of the boards have
Bunch of
fallen
boards were
down.
falling off of it.
And with the construction going on, we figured we
Yeah.
would just grab
Okay, I
it.
didn't know
quick,
where
so
it was.
It's just at our shop. It's
I
out
looked
back.
for it. I wished I would have talked to you first.
Yeah, no, it's at our shop. We,
I'll revisit it because a lot of those are old, those signs down there too.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, on the agenda, we are going to have the public hearing for the local law for the tax cap override. So a motion to open the public hearing. Moved by Mark, second by Dan. All in favor? Okay, open up the public hearing. And this is something that we do every year based upon requirements handed down to us from New York State that we passed a local law in regards to overriding the tax levy limit override, which I think is capped at 2% by the state. So we have to override it if we go above it, the 2%, which we will be again this year, based upon assessments and tax rates and things. If we go above it, then we stand to be penalized by the state. So to avoid that, we have to pass the law. So any comments from the public? Okay,
Close the public hearing.
motion to close, Mark,
Second.
Dan, all in favor? Okay, any other discussion? I think we're all familiar with this from the last few years. Any questions? Say
I
anything?
read up on it too.
Okay,
What, do we know what it is? What the figure is?
Actually, I just told the mayor, we are over the 2% by $144,037, which is,
Familiar.
yeah, which is in essence what we're putting away in reserves. But so instead of being just at the 2%, we're at 4.45% is where we're at with the increased levy. So yeah.
Thanks, Lori.
okay, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now for our budget,
Wait, I didn't
okay.
catch who made the motion
I
to
did.
adopt, okay.
Mark and Dan, however, I don't think
Whichever
it's
order.
right.
I had it just to close, okay.
Okay. So we're to the point now where tonight is the night that we have to adopt our budget for the year 25 to 26. We have had, as I mentioned at our two public hearing nights and meetings, just kind of a quick review, because I've said it a few times, but our total budget is $8,352,274, an increase over last year's budget of 9.4%. Estimated revenue is here, unexpected fund balances here, and of course, the amount to be raised by taxes is $3,354,359. And tax levy is an increase of 6.79% as opposed to last year's tax levy increase of 12.8%. The assessments went up 13.26%. The tax rate that we have been working towards and have agreed upon and have proposed in this budget is $6.60 a thousand. A decrease of 5.7% from last year's tax rate is $7 per thousand. Obviously, it includes all the necessary things as far as fixed costs to run this village, all the services provided by our different departments, particularly the DPW, the fire and EMS, the clerk's office, and the codes office. Includes recreational, cultural, and celebrations, historical programs at Manlius Museum and the Gage Foundation and the Village Clock, and other necessary costs such as legal and engineering, not to be limited to any of those that I just mentioned, but those are a few examples of that. We've also included in this year's budget that Lori just mentioned 2 reserve accounts, one being the employee benefit accrued liability reserve, and then another, the village property repair reserve. Also included in this budget, which I kind of neglected to say at the public hearing meetings, but I think it's been out there a little bit and discussed, is that we did increase the tree commission budget by $50,000 to start to work on the maintenance of our street trees. So that was another larger type of expense that we put in the budget, and we were still able to accomplish the above mentioned numbers. So that's my kind of overview. So we heard from the public at 2 different public hearing meetings, 2 different days, 2 different times of the day, and taking comments into consideration. Everybody's heard those that are here, and we also had, anybody had the opportunity to email or write request any comments to us, and we received none, just so everybody knows where we're at with that. So at this time, we take a motion and then have people discuss. Is that the proper way to do it, or does it matter?
Opposite,
Okay,
you can do.
so why
however
don't we
you
go
want.
around the table? No, I'm just asking because it's been a year, so
I
you know,
know.
things are a little foggy, so. And you remember it every year, so I would take comments now because the trustees nor myself really spoke at budget here or public hearings. We just listened to the public, so now it's our opportunity to have some words. Do you want to start or?
Sure,
Okay,
wasn't exactly prepared, but.
well, you don't have to say,
you-
you can say whatever's comfortable.
You
let's
give
put
me
it
a
that
great
way.
chance, so, I really think that we had a good process. We spent more time than usual. I think we all come away with it with a deep understanding of not only what we have put in this budget, but what our challenges are moving into the future. And I would hope that we will continue to look at this over the course of the whole year so that we may be able to address the concerns of some of the citizens who are here. That, you know, if, because of the increases in the tax assessments, even when we lower the tax rate, people are going to have, some people will have some increases in taxes. And because of the great uncertainty in all the budgets above us, people are very concerned and they want us to do the best that we can to be frugal and to look at every little thing that we can look at to, you know, maybe bring that into maybe to avoid such a large increase in the next year. And I look forward to doing that work with our board.
Actually, I think Casey's right. Uncertainty is the watchword. And that's the watchword I hear in New York State. It's the same thing I hear in all the municipalities around New York State. We worked exceedingly hard on this budget in order to be able to understand and make sure we try to fulfill what our current residents wish to have in services provided to them. I'm also aware of municipalities throughout New York State that are having great difficulty because they have major increases in their budgets. And that's one of the things that's very difficult for them. And some of them, I don't know if these communities are going to survive. And that's one of the things that I have to really put out there, because I know some folks who've got between 20 and 25% tax increases. And that's not a sweet deal for most of those folks. And we worked very hard to try to keep this as tight as we could. I am still would like to have greater reserves because we do have some very significant issues coming forward at us. And I'm still looking at that, trying to figure out how we can take care of that. And I know others are working with me. And those are some of my significant questions, but this is really a good budget that really takes consideration of our residents as well as the services that we're providing to them.
Not much more to add.
No. Don't look at me that way.
No, they did it. They said it. Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. And I just will add that our responsibility is to not just make sure this year is okay, but we're really looking out. And I will change one word. Certainly it's uncertainty, but I think it's chaotic. Chaos to me is a lot of uncertainty. It's just really out there. So we have the daunting task of some very large expenses coming our way and preparing for them properly so that the cost, which will have to be borne by the village, is as minimal of a cost that we can possibly foresee in light of the chaos. And I think that's what we were all trying to do with this budget. So we're also trying to give those who provide excellent services a living wage. And so for those reasons, I'm totally in favor of this budget.
I have a lot. Okay.
Good.
Well, first of all, thank you to Lori and the mayor. They're the ones that prepared the budget that we initially looked at. And I'd certainly like to thank Superintendent Hall for Chief Hildreth for their reports, because that's a major part of our budget, and they had everything in order, this, and this, and they did a great job. So Lori and the mayor, and also it's sort of new for both Jane and Casey to do this. Jane was here, but and I was impressed with the things that they came up with and the things that they said that they would like to do. I don't agree with some of that, by the way, but we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But anyway, I thought they,
Here,
I thought they were very, very good as far as, you know, doing, asking great questions, understanding this, and, you know, doing different things. Of course, Mark and And Mike and I have been doing it for a while, so I'm not going to congratulate Mark or Mayor I am, but Mark and I are not going to congratulate us. One of the things that it sort of bothers me, it came up at the meeting the other day, was Manoa has eliminated their court. And I have been on the board and we've eliminated things that I will tell you personally, I feel bad about some of the things that got eliminated. For example, the big one is the police. We technically still have some control over the police, but before we did it, it was ours. And we did a lot of things. We had a lot of say in that. Other things that were eliminated was, and that we had a nice meeting, Mike got the person to come to talk about assessments before we did assessments ourselves. And, it was easy because it was easy to contact the person plus us or somebody right here. So there were a lot of things that I don't like the idea of eliminating and transferring other things that we have. I guess there's an old saying, the smaller the unit that exists, the more strength it looks for. Something like that. I'm not, that's probably not. With regard to the reserve funds, Mark and I obviously don't agree with that. I am happy to have a reserve fund. I just feel that there were a couple things in the budget that I don't necessarily totally agree with, but because of the impetus put in by the other members of the board and explaining, let's not let this happen. Let's be proactive and be ahead. We will have some reserve funds. So the thing about reserve funds is fine. We have reserve funds to buy, you don't have to. So,
I'm not really.
good thing.
Just making it up.
Yeah. But, I know Bob and Paul, have those things that. For other items, I don't know, they're mainly for trucks and things like that. One thing that happens with the reserve fund is the people that pay this year and end up leaving, somebody comes in and takes their place. That person coming in and take their place gets the benefit of that, but you don't have to pay for it. It's a small item, but it's something that I know. And also with regard to reserve funds, we know what they're there for. Technically, that's what we use them for. Correct?
100%. I'm not sure where you're going with it. So
Well,
finish
I
your
just
comment.
want to make sure that we understand.
They're 100, they're earmarked, it's pursuant to the
Correct.
law that you can
Okay.
only spend it a certain way, so
Yeah,
yes, I'm not gonna
you
shift.
can't break in.
Correct, I can't rob from that
Right.
Peter reserve to pay Paul.
Once they're there for that, that's it. So,
Is that can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
With that clarity that you just got from Lori, is that a good thing? Is that a neutral thing? Is that a bad thing?
we put. If I decide to vote yes on the budget and voting for a budget that has those reserve things in, I want those reserve things to be used
For those things.
for those things.
Yeah.
Now, if there's an emergency, then
That's a different story.
maybe different things, but technically, we can't say, well, we're a little short in this account. Okay, so. okay,
Even in an emergency, you can't do that.
Okay,
So
well, yeah, well,
not in a,
the-
not to, only if it's for that emergency
Okay, but the
repair of a,
if we did do it for something else, we could have an Article 78, right? To say you can't do that.
but I don't wanna,
No.
We might put ourselves into
Yeah.
that position. I
yeah,
don't think
no, we
that-
would follow the law,
Okay.
know.
Okay, so, my main, feeling about the, budget is that our most important thing is to maintain the services we now have, which I feel are just above you know, there's, you can't say they're super, they're above being super. So I certainly don't ever want anything to reach, any restriction on those services that we currently provide. So that's probably enough said.
I mean, I think.
Just run out of paper.
Run out of paper. No,
You told me I could talk.
you can talk. I said tonight was your night.
Can I just piggyback on Dan for a second? The public wouldn't necessarily know this, but Lori and Mike produced 4 versions of this. So there were continuous adjustments as we went along in this process. So I think that's just another sign. And I wanted to echo what Dan said and thank you both for everything that you put into it, all the questions that you answered, as if, you know, Lori has every account in her mind and can tell us the history of those as well. So, you know, it's really a good process that way. Thank you both very much. And Mike, your summary has been really helpful for, I think, for a lot of people and will continue to be over the course of the year. So.
Good, thank you. So I have to say again is to reiterate what everybody else said, it's to thank Lori because she put a lot of effort into all this and keeps us on the straight and narrow when it comes to what we have and what we need and where we're going and how much percentages or this or that. Of course, to our department heads, Bobby and the chief and Lori in the clerk's office, Mike in the codes office, the courts, everybody that participates in any way. As far as that goes. So that I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the board for their participation. We spent a lot of hours on the budget, kind of reviewing things and a lot of good questions, a lot of good thoughts came up because of those discussions. As lengthy as they were, it was important to go through all of that information and have a better understanding about it. So if people ask us about things, we have more information to share with our residents. One thing that was brought up at the last public hearing of the budget discussion was about catch basins and sidewalks. So we are working on the sidewalks, as you just heard, and we'll be continuing to work on those, obviously, as the summer goes on. The catch basins that are all being mentioned on that side of the village all are on streets that are scheduled to be repaid this year. So it's not the catch basin itself that has settled or that needs repair, but it's the pavement around it, as was described to us. And we've received several pictures of different places to the clerks. So I've loaded up their emails, but all the locations are things that are going to be addressed this summer in the course of paving. So just say if anybody has those questions or sees anybody about that. Other than that, I just have just want to thank everybody again for what they did. So a motion to
I move to adopt the 2025 to 26 budget for the village of Fayetteville.
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I was on my edge of my seat waiting.
Yeah, he said I.
It's always me.
That's okay. Okay, so 6A, we have the Franklin Street Bridge to talk about, and Lori will be able to speak to this better than I. But just as a general thing, we received a grant to replace that bridge. It's through New York, still answer this question better than I, but it's through New York State, but the funds are federal. And in order to proceed with that, we need to pass a resolution and to kind of get on board with this. There's a question, of course, it's been alluded a few different times during tonight's meeting about the chaos, about the uncertainty of funding and where it's coming from and how it's coming to us and things. But in order to continue down the road, we need to pass a resolution regarding our signing on to this. And this first part of it is involving the engineering of the project. It's a cost, and I can speak to all this a little bit, clarify what I'm saying after, but it's a cost of around 200 and some odd thousand, of which the village would be responsible for around $11,000 of it. There's a 5% match to this particular grant that we got. So Lori can answer some more questions or say a few more words about this just in general, if you have better idea, and she's talked to some state and other villages that have signed on to this, so.
So this was, I think, either our third or fourth round at going for this bridge grant. And we were finally successful and, were awarded the grant. The total amount is in this resolution that is $1.542 million. There's two parts to it. We have to adopt the resolution and then we have to authorize the mayor to sign the contract agreement, which is, the mayor stated, the first part is, total cost of $240,000, or the village's share is $12,000, and the funds that we're receiving is $228,000.
That's a contract for the
bridge.
constructions? No, the 220,000 is for
Yes,
what?
it's for the engineering, free engineering,
For the
of-
engineering.
yes, which we, would no matter what we do over there, and that's why asking, Superintendent Hall to stay and possibly ask some questions, but this is for, the PE and design and right-of-way incidentals that we might have to do. So
Fine.
those are it has nothing to do with construction.
Right.
I mean, it's not the
No,
physical
no, you're- I know
construction
It's
of it.
planning and
Yep,
design
yep,
and
and-
permitting probably.
yes.
And no construction. And that's $240,000.
That portion is $240,000. Federal funds, we would be reimbursed is $228,000. And local funds and or in kind totaling $12,000.
So 240 is the total cost.
Total cost,
And
240.
then feds is 228
Village is 12.
and the village share is 12.
Of the 240. Yes. It's 5%.
But
It's a
we-
95%.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's 12 from the village share, which is 5%. Okay. But but the feds of the $240,000 cost, we're gonna get 228,000 reimbursed
Yes.
benefit.
Correct.
Yes.
Through New York State.
Yes, this is being administered by the New York State Department of Transportation, DOT, yeah. But it is federal
Yeah.
monies.
Yep. As long as
Yes.
as long as New York State is still liked.
Yeah. So
Well, I
I,
mean, these are like
I'm
chances.
teasing.
No, I know, but I mean, there's certain risks involved with
There's
everything.
a
This
big
is,
risk there.
this
It's federal
is
money.
something, but the bridge, and that's why we asked Bobby to stay, definitely needs attention at something.
The bridge has been flagged every year
For
for the
years.
last
It's-
5 or 6 years by New York State.
This is the bridge that's near their bus garage.
Yeah.
Correct.
All
so,
right, so keep going.
so I reached out to our contact who's Karen Cole at the New York State DOT to discuss this with her and explain my concern, and I think I've noted that to several of you, because of the uncertainty and chaos. That being that so many things were being put on pause and, you know, what if we spend money and then it turns out that it is not reimbursed? What does the, you know, she said, we have not had any issues with that program. And I said, okay. And she said, we have had people that have already been reimbursed. They have a contract. But I said, for this funding year, well, no, big difference. So bottom line is we can't spend any money until we have contracts and everything in place. So it comes down, if we don't do this exactly how it is, we would essentially be saying, thank you, but we're not going to take your grant. Then we would have to figure out how to repair that bridge anyway, fully on our dime. Because we are saying, and nobody has told us that this grant isn't going through, it's just that every day is different, you know, it could be taken away tomorrow and given back the next day, or, you know, nothing is happening like that now, it's just that, you know, logical person would say what it could. But, anyway, go ahead.
So this is our stopgap, so if things go the devil in the handbasket, this is our full exposure at the moment.
Well, the resolution says we will do it all,
Right,
so
but we haven't got the mayor who signed for everything yet.
we haven't got the mayor to sign for it, we just have the $240,000.
Right.
This
So we
is
have the mayor sign for the
contract.
$240,000, then we're gonna wait to figure out where we are as we go. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Is
It buys
the
us a
two-
little time.
Is 240 within the 15?
Yes,
Yes.
that's part of it,
Alright.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
So
you know,
down to 1,300,000.
when we got this back in the end of
No, no, I-
February, we sat on it a little bit. It says enclosed are 4 copies of the master agreement for the above mentioned project, which is the same thing as in the resolution. Due to the extensive processing time, please return 3 copies of the master agreement and resolution, the original, as soon as possible. It could be months and months and months before we ever even have the contract in place. I talked to her about, you know, what people are putting in the resolution, if you'll go down to where the dollar amount is
Yeah,
stated,
that's my question.
is hereby appropriated from, and it was blank, and you had to fill that out. So, I asked, well, we don't have that money set aside. What are people putting in there? And she said, you can just put future bond resolutions, or we could do, or general fund or whatever. So I did actually reach out to the Village of Skinny Atlas, who did pass their resolution and sign the contract. And they put general fund. They may have reserves set up for this, I don't know, but they did in their, they are moving forward with their project too. They said it was,
So
they
if
didn't
I,
realize it was federally funded though.
so if I'm understanding what you just said, even though we have future bond resolutions listed here, if we have the money or choose to
Yes.
take the money from a different source, we
Or other qualifying.
can do that.
That was
Or,
perfect.
exactly, or if we get another grant somewhere,
right.
something comes up. I'm not sure how this would qualify under CHIPS.
The construction would qualify.
Well,
under
yeah,
CHIPS,
right, not the, design and engineering,
Right.
but,
I can look into that though.
but we're, you know, and hopefully, and maybe that would just be, you know, the problem is the amount of money, when they broke it down and it's only 240, I felt much more comfortable than having to front $1.5 million and wait for their very slow reimbursement process. It could be a couple months. Because the contractors aren't gonna wait for their payment till we, you know, and we actually have to pay it to get reimbursed. So that's why they're saying, well, how are you funding it? So.
So we're not technically, can I try to restate that in different words? If we adopt this resolution, we're saying that if we need to, we will use future bond or other qualifying source to pay back. Or not to pay back.
To cover the
To
cost.
cover the cost, but to cover the cost, waiting for reimbursement. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to ask this question. I don't know if it's gonna make sense. Right now, our cost exposure initially will only be $240,000 of the 1.5 million. If we continue chipping into the 1.5 million at that kind of rate to 200,000, 240,000, 150,000, we may be able to swing it.
It won't be that way. The next contract that comes through will be for the construction phase of it.
Okay,
And engineering, the construction engineering phase. It's not gonna be small amounts. The next one
it'll
will
be
be.
final engineering documents. This
it'll
is gonna be conceptual engineering documents. Okay.
And like you said, permitting and right of way applications and things like that. The next one will be everything.
Are we totally expecting that we will have to bond to pay for it?
I truly am expecting that we'll have to, somehow be creative. I'll put it to you that way, depending on how much we might have to, you know, borrow from the water account that sits there and just, we can't touch it, but we sometimes have this money that is just sits there. And we have to borrow from it and pay back. So if we have $400,000 in a water fund, I will tell you that whoever doesn't know that, basically Aqua paid us money when they took over in 1973, and it's sat there. We can't really spend it in the event that we ever want to take back the water. So it's almost like your savings that you can use to pay
Alright.
back and ebb and flow. If not, we will have to take out some kind of a bond. And I would say it would be a note. It would just be a bond anticipation note that is short,
Not a-
short
Not like a
term.
long. term.
Yeah.
No, it'd be a very short term for an amount that
Right.
got you through the and then it would be
And
paid
we're-
back with what was reimbursed.
We're looking at most likely 20, like this time next year in 26, that we will be needing to,
Well, it says it is agreed the construction of the project will begin 2 years after the award. And the construction phase is going to be completed within 30 months. And that's pretty much,
Is that
it
30
has to be done
additional?
within a couple of
I have
years.
a
yeah.
quick question on that. What you just said.
Sure.
Just a quick question.
Okay.
30 months is after the 24 or the 30 months is the 24 and then the 30 is
in addition.
from
To-
the, from the time,
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that.
okay.
This was their boilerplate resolution.
I
Okay.
so I didn't know
Yeah,
whether
no,
the 30 and 24 tied together.
I would say in looking at it, just because of the way it reads, because, it should be no later than 24 months after the award,
Right.
and the construction phase shall be completed within 30 months. I'm gonna say it's after the award.
Okay, thank you.
So
what I-
that's
So
how
they have
I
6
would
months
look at
to, basically 6 months.
Yeah,
So-
Yes,
So,
But up to longer if they could start it.
so if it was approved with 12 months, then the 30 months would still stay there.
yes.
Okay, all right.
There's nothing to say that this is not going to come through
No,
either.
I know.
This
I know.
is a
We've never-
conjecture upon.
We've
what
never
we're-
looked at a grant with any, once it was awarded,
Trepidation.
never.
No, no one ever has.
Yeah.
But we've never had the kind of pullback we're
Exactly.
getting from the federal government right now.
Right, I'm not saying we shouldn't, I'm just saying like this, I
It's all
don't wanna
right.
go into it saying that we have, but I don't know that we really wanna bypass getting this.
No, I wouldn't
I
recommend
just
bypassing
think
it.
that we need to go into it with our eyes wide open and find out as much information, which
Yeah.
Lori was able to do to get us to this point.
But if we pay for the engineering now, the engineering's always there. So.
That's what the mayor
so-
talked about
so
earlier.
it's always,
We have that.
it's always gonna be there. So it's not gonna be lost in any way because it's something.
Still money well
It's gonna
spent.
be, well.
I don't hire an architect.
Well,
We
better.
won't go that far.
I'm not gonna say that.
Then we're gonna hire an architect.
What?
Then we're gonna hire an architect.
The only thing I can say to that, and I'm just making, and it's fine if you want to look at this, consider, whatever, we need to do something.
We kinda
here.
need to act sooner than later.
But even though the engineering will be there and it's money that we have to spend, this isn't necessarily what we would do to fix it. We could make it, Bobby, this is what I'm saying, this could be a big culvert.
That's the idea.
The other idea, it would be designed possibly
Yeah.
differently if we had to pay for it, other than what this grant was put into. Does that make sense? If we have different types of bridges or overpasses that you build, one might be cheaper than the other.
I know the last time I met with BNL about it, we talked about putting in a box culvert. So it wouldn't
Kind of like they did
necessarily,
across from the town center
yeah,
last
it
year,
wouldn't
right?
necessarily
With the-
be a bridge, it would be a box culvert.
But we need to have it as a bridge. We have buses right there.
You'd
I
still
don't-
get
You'd
over it.
still get over it, yeah, so it would be, there'd still be a road over it, it's just basically a giant concrete square. That you set in the ground.
So
With a lot of
ugly- we-
reinforcement
we- we
around
are an
it.
Ugly fugly. This is what lets the water come into Bear Park.
The biggest issue that. The reason why this is so expensive is there's a National Grid gas main that runs directly alongside the bridge. And it goes over the water, it's exposed the whole way over.
Yeah, you can see
So,
it right
yeah.
from,
So that's the right of way permits, everything like National Grid's gonna have to sign off on whatever we do. I know the last time I talked to BNL, we talked about a box culvert instead of reconstructing the bridge.
I think that it would take them all of this year to get their plans, they're right there. I don't think it would start, I don't know that they build bridges in the wintertime, honestly, I'm not sure. But, they wouldn't be able to pave it.
No.
So it would probably not even construction if we got everything in place. And if they said it's a very long process, wouldn't probably happen until, I would say, next year.
Right.
So,
And I would imagine because of the location of the bridge and the need for those buses to get there and the importance of that access, that it would be a warm weather construction time, yeah.
If we
Or
were end
even
up
when
on the
school
hook
is
for
out,
this, we could always approach the school to pay for part of it.
If we had to. So I'm, thank you for all of
My
your,
board members saw that already.
But that's not
I
gonna
know.
happen.
I know. It's just wishful thinking,
thank
like
you
a lot
for
of
your
things in life, but.
sure, and it's, we've never had this conversation, so it's different. This is my first.
And I think this is a different, because this is a true infrastructure deal, which is different than what we're seeing at the federal level also. And, you know, and the need is really high because it's right next to a school bus garage. And the school right there also. So this is the kind of thing that really people everywhere, no matter where, even if they don't want to pay it, they're gonna look at this very much twice, is my whole point. I'm not gonna say we're gonna be totally successful all the time, but I think we have to do this in some manner, no matter what we do at this point. So I think we should move forward. I'm
I
not,
think, and
I'm not
again,
happy
we
with
would
what we're
not
doing.
do anything. Not until we had a contract in place. I
Right.
mean, and when that gives us, me a level of a little bit more.
yeah, I'm totally behind this,
100%.
100%. I think this is a great opportunity. I just wish we didn't have to make these decisions in light of all the chaos that's out there.
Agreed.
If the chaos weren't out there and I had more confidence that our federal funding would be available as they say it is, I wouldn't have gotten all that clarity. I would have just
And
signed
this
off
is not
on it.
our first grant. Our Safe Routes to School is a federally funded grant. And so I'm very familiar with working through.
They're generally great
Sure.
grants. They're very reliable. I just,
Yeah, I don't know if you were ready to act on it tonight. That's great. This resolution I put in front of you is what, we would have to have a motion to adopt the resolution and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. If you're not comfortable, you have more questions and wanted to, I would just
We
over the
should-
next meeting or
We should
two.
decide, yeah.
Yes.
sooner than later,
okay
that's what I'm
tonight. I
saying.
don't know.
Can I ask for us, for the mayor to sign only up to the $240,000 limit at that point in time? Or can I have?
Oh, that contract is only for the 240.
That's what
The
I'm asking.
resolution.
The contract that I would sign initially is for
Okay,
the,
because I'm just
this
trying to control
resolution is
exposure.
the
That's
whole
what I'm
amount.
looking at. Okay, you understand why I'm asking?
There'll be an amendment to this when they bring in the next.
Yeah.
The next amount.
So I don't want to swallow real hard.
yeah, okay. So everybody has the copy. Any other questions in general? Do you have a question?
I
Or
was just gonna make a motion, that's all.
does anybody want it read or you're okay with what you read and we'll enter it in the minutes? The
We're
resolution
happy if you
itself.
want it read. I'll read it. If you don't, if you're happy, read it.
No, I'm just asking the board if they want it read. I don't need it read. It's here for me. But it'll be in the
Is
minutes.
there any benefit to the public though if we do that?
It doesn't bother me
It's
whatsoever.
gonna be online or whatever.
Oh, this will be online.
Yeah, I
Well,
will
it'll
insert-
it'll be in the minutes. It won't be online like tomorrow, but it'll be in the minutes. So anybody that wants to read it is able.
Minutes.
Well, then I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the village mayor to sign resolution number 2025 0428.
That's this one that's to be signed by you, right?
Yeah, I'm doing that after I make sure you're voted,
Right.
but you're gonna,
Okay.
no. that's
No,
okay.
so
I meant-
yeah.
I meant to have
Yeah, I
the.
know.
Whatever. I just saw it today.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And then a motion to have the mayor sign the
Yeah.
contract.
I move that the mayor sign the contracts that correspond to this resolution. For 248,000.
Initially it'll be that. We'll give you an update as we have each one, I guess.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
All right,
Okay.
I apologize for the chaos of all this. Go ahead.
Well, it's just something we gotta take a look at or whatever. Things like that. So next is another grant discussion. Regarding a request for cultural landscape report on the Ledger Canal. just a little bit of brief history on this. This was a grant that, the idea of the grant, I don't know if it's the same exact, if Pam is here, so she can help explain this. The Historic Preservation Commission, submitted a grant last year for a CLG grant, and it was turned down. I have the letter that I had last year and Pam forwarded it to me, so I have it for tonight. That was dated in August, and the CLG grant that was applied for last year for this type of funding was turned down because they received requests for like double the amount or triple the amount of money that they had. And they also followed up with emails and things about what we might do to resubmit for that grant another time. In the meantime, this is regarding the Ledyard Canal, and the Ledyard Canal is owned entirely by the village, except for one small section, I believe, through Merlick Apartments. All the way from the village of Manlius through to Limestone Creek where it ends. I don't know if everybody knows the history, but it goes back to the 1800s when that was designed and built to provide for mills and different businesses in Fayetteville, and the water powered those businesses. This particular grant proposal that we're looking at or going to be discussing tonight, I don't know if we'll be ready for a vote or not by the time we're done, but at least it will give us an opportunity to talk about things and to find out more information. I think Pam will share some more information about this with us. And this particular grant would be, it's my understanding that it would be a SAM grant. So it is a state municipal grant program, and they are administered by our elected officials. So this would be through Senator Ryan's office, I believe that this is going to. We have that ability through Assemblyman Sturpey's office. We have had these types of grants in the past for different things. Lori looked at a couple of them. I don't remember what you said they were for, but she is.
I mean, just one I pulled out we had is for the DPW
Oh,
garage salt shed roof replacement, the guardrail on the top of at Bishop's Brook. And to replace the roof on this building, that's still in process.
So these SAM grants are grants that we can ask our elected officials for, such as Assemblyman Sturpey or Senator Ryan. We are not limited in the numbers of these that we ask. In fact, with Assemblyman Sturpey, I believe we had to come up with an amount of 125,000, I think, in order to ask that particular time. So that's why there was 2 or 3 things listed on there. So there's some opportunities here. And I don't know if you want to add to it. So this, I believe, was put together by Craig Hamus
and myself.
and Bender through the historic. So you probably have some information you might want to share in general. And then perhaps people here will have questions to ask too or whatever.
Background than you did.
No, I appreciate that. No, I appreciate it.
It's fine. When I filled out the grant application last 2024, I will read you what I got from Frances Stern from SHPO. And well, actually, it's my interpretation of what she said. But she also sent you a letter too.
Yeah.
Basically, you said that, you know,
Right.
they had a lot of applicants and that
Right.
kind of thing. But then I had a personal conversation with her. And this is just my synopsis of our conversation I had with Frances. They thought the grant application was more of a duplicate of the Historic American Engineering Record grant that we received prior. They could not distinguish between the HARE application and the Cultural Landscape Grant application. I'm a little confused about why they couldn't, but they couldn't. For the 2025 grant application, I will outline in more detail what monies would be used for, define our goals for what the future work would be and what we're aiming for. And she also said that they want to see what we're doing, Village Board itself is doing themselves right now to promote and preserve the canal. She stressed that, like, she'd like to see when you're filling out a grant application, what are you doing otherwise, you know, besides applying for a grant? And what your visions are for the future of it and the importance that you believe it is. So that was the conversation that I had with her. And I don't know if any of you had a chance to read this report. It's 20 pages that Craig and I
put together, just,
I just,
One is
this, the
20.
one that you emailed to me the other
yeah.
day,
We
or like
just,
a
we
couple days
just
ago.
finished that a couple
Right.
days ago,
So
yeah.
I emailed this to them yesterday.
Yeah, I read it all.
Okay,
Oh, great, okay. Well, thank you.
I'm not sure what they had time to do, so.
Okay, yeah, no, I really didn't know at what time. And basically, we're looking for the cultural landscape report again, but obviously through Senator Ryan's office. And it says here that what we wrote, the CLR will document existing conditions, access historical significance, and provide detailed recommendations for preservation, restoration, and public engagement. This foundational report is urgently needed to prevent further deterioration of this 176-year-old canal. And without timely intervention, invasive vegetation and structural decline may soon render this rare historic resource beyond restoration. It's a concern. And you were just mentioning how you said the water that feeds Barrett Park under this bridge, that is the Ledger Canal. Okay, okay. So there's a lot of things to be concerned about to do with maintaining, and not only that, just promoting it publicly, historically, so people can actually appreciate the history that actually made the village of Fayetteville. So, anyways, that's what the beginning letter was all about, and then we got into detail. So they understand that we got the Hare report and what that meant, and it's filed with the Library of Congress now, so you can see pictures and look up the write-ups. It's also in your reconnaissance survey that HBC did, and there's paragraphs on the Ledger Canal there and how unusual, this Ledger Canal is the only canal like it in the nation. Maybe the world, who knows? I don't know, but in the nation, and that's been documented before. And now it's on our logo. It's important, and it's important for us to make sure that we're going to maintain it, and have it for future generations. So, anyways, do you have any other questions about anything? I mean, this money that we're asking for, obviously, is just like what you're talking about with the bridge. You pay for whoever you contract, and then you get reimbursed. Now, I don't know if that's federal funded. I thought it was state.
It's state.
Money.
It's state.
Yeah, state money. So I wouldn't think that would be such a concern as what's,
Right,
federally.
the difference also between the grant that you had applied for last year and this
Yeah,
year
and they, yeah,
is though, this particular grant proposal for Senator through the SAM types of grants are non-matching funds from the village.
Right.
So if we ask for $60,000, we have $60,000 to put into the project. We don't have to pay, like we just discussed,
Right.
paying for the bridge grant over there. So it's a different concept from what we just talked about.
No, because it's a reimbursable grant, which means that if we hire someone to write the cultural landscape report, which we would have to do.
yeah, and you'd have to pay.
Well, we pay
first.
them, but we don't have to pay any co-pay. With the bridge, we're paying
There's no match.
5%.
There's no match.
There's
that's
no
fine,
match
but
to
they-
it, so.
you've written into
Yeah.
your report a $10,000 expense.
Which
by
we have to,
DPW.
this may not be 100%, so it's not gone to anybody
I
yet.
think we
It's
could
open
put
for
it-
discussion. It needs to,
Yeah,
that part of
well,
it would need to
We
be,
figured we'd ask for 60, but that, we're gonna have to get an up-to-date price from the company, the architectural engineering company. Last year when I got it, I think it was close to 40,000.
Mhm.
So, it could be more like
There are some-
50,000, and
right, there are some things in here that would need to be edited and changed.
Yeah.
It's not, this document,
So
It's
what's
for
your
our
decision tonight then?
it's for asking questions and kind of trying to understand this and trying to see how we want to proceed so
Yeah.
that we can either go find out what the current cost is, so we can finalize this and submit it as a proposed type of thing. We don't have to necessarily vote that we're going to do that, but I would like a consensus of the board as to maybe what you're thinking, so that obviously they've spent significant time on this so far. And before they spend more significant time on this to go further, I think we need to have a chance to, you've read it, so perhaps there's questions on there that you have from reading it. Perhaps it's something that we need to ask questions so that they can come back to us with more answers on. I mean, it's a.
Jane, you've had a list of questions. Do you have them with you now? Because I think actually,
I have them.
many of them I think could be answered right now.
But, go ahead, Dan.
We've had these things before where, but we always sort of got together and decided what's best to ask for the grant for, I don't know, let's say the cover at the DPW garage. We always talked about, usually we have 2 or 3 different things that we talk about, so whether there's gonna be, do we want if we can get a grant, do we want it for this, do we want it for that?
So along those lines with Dan, I recognize that you submitted this last year. And that it was declined. And I've had time to think about it. I do need to ask the village, not just whether this has historic value, none of that. It's more of what are we doing? What do we want to do? How involved are we going to be as a village, as the owner of this canal? To keep it other than as it is. Right now, it's a channel for water to flow. So if that's how we want our canal to function and operate, because that's all we can afford, that's all we want to do, then we need to own up to that. If we're going to say we want this canal to be turned into a walking path, a biking path and all that stuff, and we want to highlight and showcase and celebrate everything that Pam just mentioned in terms of the history of this canal, then we need to own up to that. I've seen nothing done by the village
Well, over
since I've
the,
lived here.
Oh.
So I don't want you guys putting more time and energy into a cultural landscape report that we're never gonna do anything with.
Okay,
That's
well,
exactly
can
where
I
I was.
just comment on that?
Well, just
And-
wait 1 second.
Okay.
That's not completely true. We've had, since I've been here, we cleaned the length of that canal.
I know,
You
so
have
that
here-
water could flow, but we didn't
Dredge
not
it,
turn it
we-
into.
Clean
But
Right,
we
I know.
also had trees, I think, that were in
Yeah.
bad shape.
Right.
We had to go, we had a breach of the canal. We had to go, where was it?
So
Wind.
it's maintenance of the canal.
Here, Cam.
But I'm saying, we had a.
Yeah, yes, you did.
So-
You had a big breach. We had to put a pipe in there.
Are you saying that your position is that we should just leave it as it is?
I wanna hear the conversation. I don't,
Okay, so
I
I would like
don't-
to say something.
oh, did you have a,
Just wanted to add, the water used to come from Limestone Creek. The dam broke in the 70s. I think you all know that. And now the water comes from Perry Springs and this water drainage goes into it also from the streets. Town and Apples.
stormwater? type
Stormwater,
stuff?
thank you.
Yep.
And the quality isn't all that great, and that is why, the water is not good, right along the park, the pond itself. And if we don't maintain, if the village doesn't maintain the canal and get maybe some ideas from engineers, architects, engineers, whatever, of how to maintain it, you are maybe not gonna have water in Bear Park and the pond. I mean, if it's been breached once, it could be breached a couple of different times. If people start cutting trees where they shouldn't or whatever, you could be uprooting things and damaging the liner. I'm just saying,
Right, I do agree that in order to, as you said, in order to keep the water flowing, there is a certain amount of maintenance that has to be done to do that, which the village has done since I've been on this board. And there's also, as I understood this, that's part of what we would be getting. So it's not necessarily that we are committing to make it a pathway and a
No,
walkway or
not at
something
all.
like
We're
that.
just
We are
trying-
looking at it to see how do we maintain the structure that we have. And
it's not a
and-
cultural landscape report, then. That's a maintenance report, and that's a much different beast.
well, it's called, through the architects and engineers that we're working with, they're gonna assess it. It's written in here.
Landscape report is a report that takes focus on the cultural and history of a landscape.
Well, it's all that too then.
No, I understand that you understand that. But what the mayor just referenced, this is why I'm having this
Right,
conversation.
but I guess in conjunction with that, if we have, I mean, my opinion, and it's not necessarily everybody else's. If we did something like this and they present ways that we could incorporate some of those things, just. It's like the tree inventory. Just because we have the tree inventory, doesn't mean we can go out the next day and do everything we need to do with the trees that we have to do in this village. If we have something like this, there may be some opportunities that they see that we could develop into more culturally historical types of things, along with the idea of the maintenance of it. So I'm not suggesting that if they come back and they say, well, this would be great, you could have a pathway all the way here from here to Perry Springs and see where the water comes from. We have something then that we could utilize to see if that's something that we would want to do as a village. So until we know what may be available to us, I don't know if we have the answers to what we want to do with it.
And it also provides a stepping stone. When I talked to Frances Stern and someone else within SHPO, she said, if we get this, hopefully that happened, was gonna happen in 2024. If we got this, it was called the Cultural Landscape Report back then. She said, it's a great stepping stone. Once you have that, a lot more grant opportunities are going to be afforded to you because they see your interest and and it's just going to be way more opportunities. So that's what she told me. And I think they probably are right.
Or you want to wait
I
for
didn't
Mark?
really-
I don't know if you,
Okay.
okay.
I didn't really know about the Ledger Canal until I learned from the Historic Preservation Commission, and this goes back many years, Fayetteville Festival. I've gone on library tours, I see it all the time, the sections that I didn't know what they were before. I think that's true for a lot of us. It doesn't have a lot of public identity, but without it, we wouldn't be who we are. This village was built around that canal. And it is a very important natural and historic resource, which we support in our comprehensive plan. And which is mentioned in there. Our Historic Preservation Commission just blows me away in terms of all the steps that they have taken over time. It's the reconnaissance level historic resources survey, historic district. And they put together this proposal last year. And so last April 10th, we approved this very concept. And so I don't understand where there is a possibility where we would say, one of the things that is most fundamental to who we are as a historic village is not worth taking care of. And this idea that, we could just do some maintenance on it. When you look at it, that is not the case. We have many trees growing inside of it. Jane, I think you brought up a couple weeks ago how there was stagnation around the gates. You look inside of it, in Viet Pond, there's a lot of algae. It's not functioning as well as it could be. I don't know the answer to that, but they have been advised by a company, an engineering firm that came in and said, this is what you need. They have been reinforced by SHPO that this is what you need. So at this point, we are not asking for a match from the village. We are asking for the opportunity to go forward and submit this for a report that will tell us what we need to do. Can we even maintain the Ledger Canal? We don't know yet the answer to that question yet. Can we leave it the way it is? Sure, but then we're missing this opportunity again. The Historic Preservation Commission works really, really hard. When you look at the reports that they have had to do to get to this point, the dedication of our volunteers is really remarkable. So I'm very much in favor of moving forward with the submission of this proposal for all of those reasons. And, I'm not really sure why it's such a big debate. I don't understand, Dave.
Oh my
Well-
God, was that directed at me?
Well, I don't understand the point that you made about we'll just let it go.
I didn't say just let it go. We've never had a conversation about this at all. Nobody has.
Well,
Nobody brought it
I
up.
think it's good. I'm glad to see a conversation because
I think
I
we need
have.
to have
So
a
as it was
conversation.
mentioned, we did,
Casey, we can't just assume that we're gonna take care of 2.5 miles of a leadyard canal that is gonna be extremely expensive, right? We just got done shaving off flower pots to try to make a budget. This is serious to me.
This is why we're looking for grants.
I understand that, but this was just dropped on us right now, okay, for the first time.
I don't think, actually, just, it wasn't, this is the same grant,
It's
just
the same.
resurrected that you approved last September.
Yes, it is.
And it was
It is
discussed,
not the same program. There's a lot of stuff that is not the same.
Yeah, it's the same grant.
I didn't.
It's the
Excuse
same-
me, is this, can I borrow this so I can use it
Yes.
demonstratively? This piece that was emailed to us the letter is signed by trustee Cleary. She signed that in September.
I don't,
Was this the same letter that
if this question is directed at me,
whoever can answer?
let me backtrack.
Just answer that question. Did you?
Jane, I will answer your question, please give me a chance. My part of this came in January. And because I've been thinking about this and concerned that there is an urgency here that we were not addressing. So I approached Pam and said, what do you think that we could submit this to Senator Ryan? I've been in conversations with Senator Ryan's staff, multiple occasions, including today, that this was an appropriate ask from them. To me, the fact that it did not require a match was also a plus. That we would not wait for SHPO because SHPO has already said this is not fundable because it is a duplication in their minds, and Pam is, Pam rightly points out, I don't know why. It is my involvement was simple. And what I was first told in January was, you're just gonna have to submit a letter by the staff. So when I checked in March, yeah, you submit a letter and here's the list of all the questions that you need to answer. So from that point, we went from 2 different versions of a letter. And then you're like, wait a second, in order for this to be competitive, the advice of the staff was that it include the historic documents that back it up, that it include photographs and maps, which originally it did not. So this evolved over a period of time. I am not familiar with the idea that anytime we go to an elected official and request something, that it has to be approved by the board. I don't believe that has been this board's practice. So I did not know that. So it's on me, but I want to know if that's not the case, because that's what my understanding is and my watching of the board over time. So I think that the idea for you that it got dumped on you, this was not something that necessarily need to have your approval, because this was something that goes directly to someone the senator, who has to take it from a process. We may not get this money. Every dollar is competitive. They have one pot of money. I got that clarified today. There are not multiple pots of money. At the end of the budget cycle, he will know how much money he has. There are already a pile of proposals there. His staff will do the first review using the rubric of the questions that they've asked and the gestalt of everything that is in here. And then it is up to him to decide from what the staff presents, which things he's going to put forward. Then at that point, it goes to multiple state agencies for review. And it could take months, many months before it would get to the Dormitory Authority and the State Finance Committee. So this is in the ballpark of appropriate requests. And it's in the ballpark of what you have mentioned many times, our comp plan is our law. And so this is consistent with that. And, there was nothing here that was meant to be underhanded or not a part of a proper thing. So anyone who made a mistake, it's me, because I did not know that I had to do this. You may have sat, and have conversations about this, but we don't. And I asked in a meeting, on a live stream, in the minutes, sitting over there, I would like to have a process for doing grants and identifying our priorities. Jane, you said, we don't need that. I said, okay, so when I do not see a pathway, nobody wants to do that, we don't want to have that conversation. All right, I'll try my best, I'll pursue this, I'll pursue that. So, I would hate to see this proposal not go forward because of my choices.
Actually, liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission, I was aware that they were working on a grant for this, but I was aware that they in fact were going to redo the grant and go through where they were previously or when it was turned down, so they could improve the application in order to do that. I was not aware that you were going to try to take it anywhere else at the time. And I asked you quite simply at the time, Pam, I said, Pam, you need help on this, please let me know. I'd be more than willing to help you as much as I can. And I hadn't received any phone calls. The first I've seen of this is when this actually all appears.
Well, it was because, okay, number one, I thought this was the best thing since apple pie. We don't have to have a matching amount of money for the village to have to do anything with. It's money that the state has. It's a need that the village has, I thought. And then Casey mentioned this after that meeting to me, and I said, okay, Casey, let me talk to Craig. Let me see
I
what,
heard from neither of you, forgive me,
what?
and I heard from neither of you about this. I'm gonna say that.
I'm sorry.
I heard from neither of you about this. I have
Well,
to say that.
I didn't know I was supposed to.
No, because I assumed you were going in a particular direction for this grant and then you had changed direction.
Okay, well, two of the reasons that this is the other problem, Craig, the commission, I should say, Craig. The historic commission is talking about possibly expanding the historic district. We can't apply for the chances of us applying for this under SHPO and applying for an expansion of the historic district won't work. I talked to someone at SHPO today and they said, it's not, you're not gonna get awarded both things. One of them's gonna not make it. Who knows which one, or maybe neither of them are, but they're not gonna work. So it was more like when Casey mentioned this opportunity, which I thought was wonderful. I do think it's wonderful. I thought, okay, we'll start working toward that. I had no idea that I wasn't leaving you out at all. I mean,
I understand. And
it was
the real problem
it
always
was
is that we have many
just to
needs. in
put it together with
Yeah.
Craig's activities and mine and everything else. And we finally put it together and it answered all the questions. And we were so excited to think that we have this beautiful report that I'm gonna cherish if nobody else does. And that tells you everything in it. And the village needs to be concerned about this Ledger Canal, whether you think you can afford it or not. You own it. You own it.
Mhm.
Who are you gonna give it to if you don't take care of it? Who's gonna take care of it? How's the water gonna flow nicely into Barrett Park, although it's not flowing as good, and that's the other thing. The more we get into grants, the more ideas we'll get from engineers and whoever that say, hey, you know what? Maybe if you do a sluiceway at Limestone Creek and get the water coming in a little bit better without it flooding or anything, you might have a whole lot better quality water where you don't have algae in that pond. And to do with maintenance, it would be over time. It's just like, it's a park. It's a beautiful park. And it made us what we are now. We should be embracing our history, not pushing it away.
Is there a time constraint with the application?
I'll answer that. As I mentioned before, proposals have been coming in over the past several months. Once the budget is finalized, the senator will be informed of what he has to work with in his district. And there is no set date where something has to be handed in. I have been advised strongly to get it in sooner rather than later. And I don't know, I can ask if there's a drop dead deadline. I also agree, we don't have the numbers on the table of contents, so to me it was pretty clear that this was not like the final thing. We have other changes to be made, wasn't on letterhead. So there were, you know, I just got this too. And I know how hard they worked on it and that, you know, over time, when we talked about the urgency of the issue and how to be most competitive, they buckled down even more. So it is a great report. It is something that's understandable in 20 pages, which, you know, it's a complicated story to tell. 176-year-old story that we have a responsibility, I believe, I feel like I have a responsibility to not ignore what the Historic Preservation Commission has taught us about the Ledyard Canal and the state of where it's at now. And I don't plan on being here for 20 years. It's time when we kick something down the road over and over and over again, it never becomes the priority. And for me, this is one of those cases where we'll get to it, we'll get to it, we'll get to it. Well, we're not getting to it. So calling the question, are we interested in doing this or not? I thought it was really clear that we were, since we approved it already once before. This just has, this gives you much more information, so much more information than you had when we first approved it with the match.
No, I just
listening.
you know,
That's fine.
would like to do is, if we're gonna ask for, money from, state government, I would like to, think about some other things that we might have. I lived by that, canal for 85 years. I could throw a stone from wherever I lived and hit it, and so, but I didn't know that this was gonna come up. I should have been thinking of other things, other ways that we might want to request something else and put a priority list. Because I would like to prioritize it.
I will work on the priority list. I talked about it a little bit with Mike. When I first mentioned it, Mike thought I meant we were gonna make a priority list, a numerical list. So what I'm gonna suggest, and I think that this is really important, I wanna write grants for our village. We need grants. So a conversation between all of us about what those priorities are, I think is important.
Well, I think,
So let me finish, please. So if we kind of rank them in terms of these are our highest priorities, here's our middle level priorities, here's our lower level fruit. Having that list, having us all understand that as a common touch point, and I would like it put back in our copier room so that we all know when the opportunities arise. Does this match this or not? Do we have the match for this? I think that would really help improve our grant work, to have that common understanding.
So I think.
I'll volunteer, I'll work on it.
I think that kind of in the past, and Dan can speak to this, you've been on the board longer than I. The village has always taken a proactive approach in the maintenance of the canal and working on it. And done it so at particular times of need, as opposed to looking at a bigger picture of what are the long-term needs. So I think it's important that we look at what those longer-term needs are and understand where the costs might be coming from as far as maintenance of it and how it's going to work. And then making the plan for it, like we just set aside a reserve for buildings, and like we know we need a furnace and things in this building or boiler or whatever we have down there. I think in general, the maintenance of it and keeping it viable is important to the village in general. And I believe that's been my experience on the board up till now. So that's kind of just historical types of stuff. Where we go with this right now, I guess I brought it out because it says in the word grant were used in the description of what the senator's office was looking for. They have different parameters. I know in the past, when we've asked for different funding of things, I don't believe we've ever been requested to present a document like this to anybody for those funds. That I've not been aware of them in the years I've been on the board. It is something that we talked about and approved for the previous grant application. It is something that at a meeting when we discussed the fact that we were turned down for that grant, that we were going to reapply and keep that under consideration and things like that. So it's something that we kind of, I won't say that we committed to it by a vote or by action, but it's something that we did feel important about last year. If we go forward with request, there's nothing to say that we can't make other requests either to this office or to Assemblyman Sturkey's office for other areas of needs within the village. And they are non-matching types of grants, although we've done a lot of partial matching of grants over the years. So that's not to preclude us from, just looking for grants that we don't have to pay anything or do anything for or whatever and stuff
Why
like
are
that.
we not asking for more money to assist us with our street tree pruning and removal? I mean, we already have a management plan for that. We have an action plan. That's something that we know we need.
Well, we
It's
just,
just a question.
well, yeah, I mean, that's true. There's a lot of things that we need in this village. We just appropriated $50,000 by agreement into our
Right,
budget to
if
work
If
towards
he
that
gave
or
us-
whatever.
If he matched that with $50,000, then we have 100,000 to work with, which is much closer. Closer, I believe, to what the management report said we would need.
But then, as Trustee Casey said, that does just push us backwards on overall timing and maintenance and care of this. I mean, if we lose the canal due to growth, due to whatever, due to breaches, due to, I mean, we can keep putting Band-Aids on stuff as we go
This
along
is-
and things. I mean, and
I would
maybe
like
the-
to have more conversation. This, I recognize, and then I'm done. You guys have heard my perspective. There's a difference between a cultural landscape report and a engineering maintenance report. Just a different approach, difference altogether. I'm not saying one's better than the other. They're just two different things. So I think what I've heard from everybody tonight is at a minimum, we should probably pay some attention to this facility that we own so that we can maintain it. But so
well, is it fair for you to ask how long we have to make this? Go on, we haven't got a state budget yet.
Right.
I don't know when we're getting one.
It's been kind of the working to our advantage as
Right.
this developed,
Right.
over time. So, I will ask, certainly ask any question that anyone wants to answer. For sure.
So can you just, because you maybe have worked in this field and I haven't, what the difference is of what you saw in here? Or just because the title says cultural landscape report as opposed to maintenance landscape report, can you tell me what the difference is in what you saw in
I'm
here?
not sure. No,
Okay.
I can talk about it. We can.
No, we can talk about it. I'm just asking, I'm not putting anybody on the spot right now. I'm just asking questions because you just mentioned something that I didn't know about. And so I guess I would like
Titles
to
are
know
important.
kind of what the difference is. And does the title, what you read in here, my question is, and you don't have to answer it right now, is does the title match what's in here or does this not match exactly?
The title is it is more of an interest in getting full research and analysis on the cultural landscape of the canal. And that's what's in there. It is understanding the heritage and the history and the importance that plays to our community. I guess another question I have is that's an importance that plays to the town of Manlius and the village of Manlius. And, something like this would be stronger if we could unite three communities into seeking a cultural landscape report.
I would definitely look for letters of support.
Can I just read, excuse me, would it be okay if I say something?
Sure.
I was just looking up, and I'm not questioning you, Carl. I am so new at grant writing, it's not funny. So, I just looked up, a cultural landscape report is a comprehensive document that guides the management and preservation of cultural landscapes. It documents the history, existing conditions, and significance of a landscape and offers recommendations for treatment, to maintain its historic character and ensure contemporary use. Yeah. So isn't that what that is, or?
I'm not saying that's,
No, okay, I guess I
saying,
didn't
I'm questioning whether we need that versus just an engineering report. The canal, an engineering report would not focus on the cultural landscape. It would not focus on how to maintain the historic character of the area.
Well,
It would focus on how to keep the canal functioning as a stormwater management system.
but wouldn't it be best to actually, when it says here, maintain its historic character? So in other words, you're
I don't know.
celebrating the historic character.
I know that's what a cultural landscape report does.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Okay,
I don't know that that's best. I am putting out there that there are two different approaches.
Right.
This was, this language and the content came from an engineering firm.
It doesn't matter. If engineering firms are good at cultural landscape reports, just like they're good at stormwater management
One thing,
reports.
I have a quick question for you. So you said this could be lead to other grants
yes.
and be like the
Impetus.
to go on for another grant. Is it possible that, I don't remember the lady's name that you referred to there, Francis?
Francis Stern,
Is this something that they look for? Do you have the cultural landscape report? Have you, is this something, you know how grants are looking
They
for
look for
specific?
comprehensive plans,
Exactly.
they look for cultural landscape
And
reports.
this is something that would
They
take
look for
us,
engineering reports.
which would probably be
Yes.
part of that. What I'm saying is this is something that is language that they use in
could
all of
be.
their
I
grants.
can find out and give you that answer.
It'd
Like
be
I
helpful
say,
to
I'm
have
so
correct report.
New at sure kind of thing,
Well, it's not,
Because
I
it
am
is
not trying to
historic.
pit one report against the other. I'm trying to have the board understand what we need versus what we want. Maybe we want both. Which leads me to the question of the 60,000. Where is that gonna take us? I didn't, usually when I do grants, I have a professional quote to back up the ask or the request. And I'm able to provide pretty detailed budget. And not just a lump sum ask. I don't know anything about SAM grants. I've never
neither do I.
applied to them. So
And it's not a grant, it's a nomination for a grant that goes to another agency within the state, but it's essentially, it's the pot of money that your assemblymen, your senators receive, so they give out to their constituents.
So the ones that I looked at that we have on
Sure.
the file regarding
Huh?
Yeah, they're
Assemblyman Sturkey, when we talked about the roof for the salt shed and the other two things that were on there that I still don't remember, but anyway. That was a one form that I
Yeah,
believe
it's
that's
one-
all we sent in was just.
That like starts it.
That starts it. So we sent in, here's what we're doing, here's the amounts of money we're looking for. We didn't have to send in a budget, we didn't have to send in.
Well, yeah, this was called the
we had to get-
description and nomination form.
Yeah, so that was in that a different office, so not the senator's office, this was the assembly, so maybe they handle things a little bit differently, but. So I guess the bottom line is. We're interested in continuing this discussion, yes or no? And or,
I mean, I don't have any problem continuing the discussion, but in so stating that, I'm not necessarily supporting our ask for this report. So I just don't want to get into why not. I'm just being transparent.
That you're not in favor of this being
No,
submitted.
I am, right now, I am 1000% neutral.
Can I
so,
just answer one of Jane's questions? And maybe I I think I didn't make this clear enough. Is that when Pam and Craig did the original proposal, they got the estimates from the company. From a company I probably shouldn't mention, saying this is what we advise, this is what we can do, and this is what it will cost, and here are hourly rates. So because they were working really carefully to keep it really tight in terms of what the village could afford as a match, There were a few things in terms of public engagement that were not included in that. So we added a few of those things in, so that the public have the benefit of getting information from the report. Having presentations to the community. So we built on a May 2024 proposal. And the minimum ask for this, for the senator is $50,000. So we have some anticipation. Perhaps there'll be a few $1,000s shaved off of that, but this proposal is in that range.
Thank you.
Okay, I got one question, maybe Pam would know the answer. What's the DEC say about this?
DEC?
As long as nothing makes it to limestone, the DEC is good. As long as no sediment makes its way into Limestone Creek, the DEC is okay. So we'd have to put up watershed protection, we'd have to put silt fences in, socks, all that kind of stuff when we do that kind of work. Anytime you disrupt soil around water, there
Right.
needs to be some type of protections
So
where
there's disrupting anything in the canal itself is not, does not come under the DEC.
correct.
And it's because it isn't a fish stream.
We own the waterway.
Right,
New York State owns limestone, so what we do in our waterway, we have to follow like our own safe practices
so
and
there's no
stuff, but
DEC.
anything, we just can't allow any illicit
discharge
discharge into
Well, there've been
limestone.
other times when we were gonna do something there and the DEC got involved, but it was because probably.
Yeah.
Because in some way it affected the limestone.
Yep, yeah, and I was just telling Pam too, cause we were talking about where the falls come down behind Mill Street.
Right.
We've tried to dig out those cattails before, we've tried hedge clippers, we've tried excavators, we've tried everything. Part of the issue is the homeowners there blow grass into the creek as they're mowing, so you're gonna get that natural growth and everything like that, and a lot of the flow of limestone, it's a slow moving, or not limestone, sorry, ledyard, it's a slow moving canal,
So
so,
we had to have the Army Corps of Engineers was
Yeah.
involved in that project.
Right.
yeah.
So that was not DEC, so that was, so they.
I
they were-
understand
yeah.
that. I remember when that took place, yeah. But I didn't know whether the DEC was involved. I just, before we get carried away too far. Okay, I mean, I just soon discuss it next meeting, but I want to look at priorities. Maybe that's my number one priority.
For the purpose of preparation for the discussion, the things that I have here is what is the final date? I need to learn the difference between a cultural landscape report and an engineering report maintenance. I don't, engineering maintenance report, I don't know that difference. There was some talk about whether there would be letters of support. I'd be willing to pursue those. If there's additional information that I can bring to the table, I'd be more than happy to do that. Jane, is there anything that you would like?
I, think about it. Not that I know tonight.
Okay, Mark?
I'm looking at, this was actually applied for last year. And my commitment from the committee was, in fact, they were gonna reapply, and I wanted to know the dates on that for sure, so.
There aren't any dates.
Okay,
I called today because
Okay.
I was going to start applying in case this didn't work out. I didn't want to do both at the same time. I thought this was a dream opportunity, so Craig and I went with this. And,
I understand your thoughts. My concern are some of my personal priorities and what I think is important in college. And talking to constituents as well. And I understand your position as well, Pam, that goes without saying. I've worked with you long enough to know it's an important piece to me. But I also know that I'm trying to work with it where I'm trying to deal with a variety of different issues for the village and not just that. And the money from our legislators, excuse me, has much more flexibility for a variety of things that are very appropriate for some of the things we may need otherwise. That's why I'm sort of at a pickle trying to figure this out. Because I am always in the mind of how do I deal with things that are difficult to fund. And even though this may sound like it's difficult to fund, there are other avenues right now, just like there may be other avenues across the board. But I'm trying to figure out how I can get the biggest return for a village is really what I'm looking for.
Well, I appreciate that, but I did talk to Francis Stern about that today, like, when's the deadline for the grant that I tried to
Yeah,
get last year? And she goes, well, there isn't one. Just for the reasons that you were talking about, it's like the federal government keeps pulling away, and they don't have a go-ahead
Yeah.
yet. She doesn't know when it's gonna happen, but she says she sent a letter when it will.
yeah. Well, we're facing that in an awful lot of the state programs as well, because just like our bridge things, I mean, there's a really good example where that was applied for 3 or 4 times before we actually got it. It's a real big need. It's an infrastructure need. Particularly when you sit, and it does bridge the Ledyard Canal, there's no question about it, but it also sits adjacent to school property, which is the other thing, so those are the kinds of things I work and try to figure out what's most important as far as dealing with today and understanding that I still have things to deal with, because what I'm doing as I go along is I'm creating a list of things that I think are important right now, which is in different levels, and trying to deal with them as much as I can and try to find the proper funding sources for them too. Because some of them have different funding sources for different things and can take advantage of them, and others we don't, and we have to go and basically talk to our legislators to try to get things taken care of also. And it's not simple. It's not easy, it's not pretty, and I apologize for that, but that's the way it's been made for us. I have to say that. And so we do try to work with it. And by the way, there's many times we're frustrated as you are. I'm gonna say that. Because, are there a lot of things that we have, do I have a lot of wants and needs for our village? Yes. And I know I can't do them all. And I have to say that.
Well.
And as you know, I encourage you to apply again for where you did, because I think.
Well, if I can, if there's an opportunity, I can. I do. Just repeat that this to me is a priority. If it's not this year, it shouldn't be years from now that the village needs to, in my opinion, embrace this. What avenue you're going to want to go with it. And if any of you ever want to go on the walk, I mean, there's a lot of driving. You don't go necessarily on a walk. But if you want to see how beautiful it is and the things that.
Yeah, just give you an idea. I've worked
Cleaned
with, excuse me.
And
Okay.
and the things that need to be cleaned up for maintaining it so that it doesn't erode into some other whatever. It doesn't flood over in a certain area. There's like this big area that's sort of like a lake. It should not be ignored. And so I understand you've got, especially with what's going on with our government, it's a chore to try to get everything done that we really have need for. But to me, this is a primary need.
I understand your thought. And I've worked with Bobby and I've worked with residents who live adjacent to the Ledyard Canal in order to solve problems along the way too. So I understand it. So that's not unusual for us to do those kinds of things. And I appreciate that, because I would love to be in a position where we have a long-term solution for that. But I'm really looking at the point where I've got other things that are jumping right in my face right at the moment too. And I apologize for that, but I don't have an awful lot of choices sometimes. And what we had a year ago is very different than what we're dealing with today. And I have to say that.
Okay, so you're saying that if you apply to Senator Ryan's office and you get the money for the Ledyard Canal, you're saying that it's gonna take away something that
There's other
It's a bigger
opportunities
priority.
that
what is that other priority, may I ask, or is it another
That's-
meeting?
That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to see if there were other things that would not necessarily be in conflict with this, but other things that we would look.
So I guess if
for-
I can say this to Jane when she comes back, but if everybody can kind of send me some ideas of what they think we should be asking for grants from, we can then sort it out as to whether we ask for more than one from one person, we go to Assemblyman Sturkey for something and Senator Ryan for something. In the meantime, if you have specific questions about this particular proposal, I will say, like was mentioned about the letter signed by Casey. The letter would be signed by the mayor. It's immaterial to the discussion as far as who's signing the letter. I already talked to Casey about it. There's things in here about a match from the DPW say, if we get one of these SAM grants, there is no match. That's an easy thing to adjust and take out of here. I guess I wanna kind of see where everybody's thoughts are. Not only just for this particular proposal, but as Jane brought up, for the canal in general, because if we're not going to go forward with asking for something like this at this time, it's something that we can't just forget about and not look at some point in time. And obviously, we've only, as I said earlier, we've only been putting Band-Aids on it as something happens, and Pam knows this, as something happens, we go take care of what happens. So we need to kind of really address this. It is part of our history. I don't think it's a part of our history that we want to lose. We certainly have a lot of events at Baird Park with a pond with water. I've been on this board for 22 years, 23 years now. At one point, we were talking about where we could get water from to add to it, to make the flow, as Pam mentioned.
Yeah.
We talked about pumping it from the artesian well down off of Mill Street there all the way up to see if that would work. There's a lot of things that don't work. We just talked about pumping it from there over to the feeder to try and make that more viable. I mean, there's places where we said we're fortunate in this area to have a lot of water. We're not fortunate that some of it doesn't go where we want it to go or need it to go. So I think we really need to make a commitment to the Ledyard Canal in some way. Whether it's the name of this, and I didn't know there was differences of names or what those differences are, so we'll learn that. We'll just keep looking at this a little bit. Casey's gonna find out some information, get back to me so I can dispense that to other people. If you have questions or thoughts or ideas, I would ask you to send me an email or a text or something so that I can start compiling. I've heard tonight that there are other areas where people may feel we either have a higher priority at this particular time or just priorities in general of what we should be looking for funding. And perhaps there's other avenues, just like there might be for this, although not right now, there isn't, but like there was last year for this, let me put it that way. There might be some other opportunities for some of these other things we need. But having a list of stuff, I took it last time when Casey brought it up and she and I had a discussion earlier today. When she asked for a list of priorities as to what we might be seeking funds for, I took it like we want to put a roof on this building as an example next year. Okay, or we want to put a new boiler in downstairs next year or something like that. I don't think that was the way, after discussion today, I don't know that was the exact thought in the request or the talk. That's why I'm asking people to send whatever they feel we should be looking for funding for within our village so that we can do that. And then it's not a case of, okay, well, we need a roof and we're not going to look at anything else because we only need a roof. But now if we have 10 things we're looking for and the right grant opportunity comes along, then we have an opportunity to apply for it. Whether it happens to be a $2,000 grant or $1,500 for the tree that we talked about and we applied for, say, before, to $100 or $1.5 million bridge that we're putting in. I mean, that's the type of thing we do. We do have to make a decision on this sooner than later because of the timing involved. We are not limited to asking for one particular thing, so this was brought to us to think about. Once we get those priorities listed, we can begin to talk about where we go and how we do that.
Can somebody share all the information about SAM grants? I don't know
Yeah.
anything about them.
Yeah.
So if you could share that with all of us, then I can look into it and get back to you, but otherwise it's nothing more than a wish list.
Right, well,
Otherwise, well, I didn't catch that.
Otherwise, it's nothing more than a wish list.
yeah, so we'll tell you, I mean, I'll tell you what I know, or tomorrow, so it'll be
You don't
a
have to
job,
tell me
but-
anything tonight, no.
No, I'm not saying it
Okay.
tonight. I'm just saying we'll send out like information so that
Okay.
everybody is a little more on board with it and things.
And whatever you can share with me would be appreciated. And
Oh, yeah, I can.
if anything,
Hello.
start the conversation. It's a good conversation to have for the, I mean, to do with the Ledger Canal and anything else that somebody else doesn't know is a priority.
Right,
Work together and come up with a solution.
right. We all have good ideas, or everybody has ideas, so I don't know if they're always good, but we all have ideas.
Look at me when you say that, you know it's true.
So it's not a bad thing to, and I think a lot of progress and a lot of good things result from discussion. And not everybody has to agree on everything all the time to have a good discussion either, I feel. So thank you. Thanks, Pam, for coming in. And for your work so far.
Thank you, Pam.
We have a solicitor's permit that Lori has.
Yeah. We have a permit from. Trying to get the name of the company. It's a business name is Graves Brothers. They're contractors. They paid for their permit. They paid its home improvement exteriors. They paid for their background checks. Everything came back in good.
Okay,
Nobody has anything in their records. Sure, they're out of rock. Exterior. And home improvement. Right. So they would like to go door to door and give information to the residents.
I move to accept their solicitor's permit.
oh, and
Second.
second.
With
Okay.
and I'll put in with the.
All the normal.
The normal
parameters.
caveats,
normal
yes.
hours.
You put those things on the website that there might be solicitors come.
No, we don't, do we? The permits, they're,
No, I mean, we know,
Might be a good
we
idea.
advertise that there's, permits required, so people are aware
well,
of the
about who
process.
has one, so somebody can look. to
Yeah,
see, you know,
so if
that would-
somebody,
yeah.
Usually it's linked, the agenda for meetings, so that the one is coming up.
But I think Dan's saying, once they get the permit, do we put it on the website so people know, like if they were to look at our website, do they say XYZ company might be coming to my door, so they're a little more.
Require Karen to have to pay attention to when the permit expires and take them down, put them up, take them down, put them up.
We
okay,
don't have that many to.
A lot of work,
stuff,
in other
but
words.
Certainly are a simple post, we'll answer questions if they come. We notify the police so they know this, because that's where people would usually go to.
well, people go and get them from the town and they come to my door, they don't have one for the village. There you go.
But
Yeah,
would you
okay.
look on the website to find it? Because I would not look on the website
Was it
to
a
find
good
it.
solicitation?
I don't look on it anyways. to tell you the truth, but,
Did
Was
we
it
vote?
worth
I just want to
answering
make
that
sure I
door?
got that all right with
everybody
everybody.
in favor, all in favor of the solicitor's permit, I think we.
Aye, thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, are we giving them hours?
Yes, for sure. They don't, nothing on Sundays or, they're limited dusk.
Between 7
Dusk.
PM and 7.
Yeah, that's right.
PM.
They can go soliciting, what hour, they can hit as many houses as they can get.
Okay.
Same as we always
It's
do.
the same as, yeah. And I think is it 10 o'clock?
They
on
can't start till
Saturdays?
9 or 10 in the morning, they have to be done by.
I want to say 9 till dusk or
Yeah.
something like that, and not,
Yeah.
so that it's not after dark and it's not on Sundays.
I think it should be a time for everybody.
Okay, can we go around the table? Then, right, anything else? Casey, did you have anything else to talk about?
So I talked with Brandon Lazor. There was a great article that included him. I have a copy of it to share at some point. And I think what I'm recommending is that he participate by Zoom at our next meeting on April 12th. I'm sorry,
May
May 12th. And we also met, so that's my proposal. I met with the Liverpool mayor, and the mural that he did up there is really gorgeous. So I will also be taking some more pictures locally. He is an Onondaga man, but he lives in Akwesasne. If it's better for everyone that he comes here, he was willing to do that. I said, I don't know that that's necessary because we've been able to accomplish a lot through Zoom. So if I have pictures for you, and Brandon, I think, you would appreciate, all of you would appreciate meeting him and hearing him talk. He'll do a better job than I did last time of explaining our two options. So if that's okay, can I do that?
I'll add them to the agenda.
Sure. The police committee met last week, and just a couple of notes, Lori. They'll be having their open house on May 17th from 10 to 1 PM at the station. one Archie Albany's. They'll be doing car seat safety checks there and no appointments are needed. Also at that meeting, it was the time for us to elect a new chair. Counselor William Nicholson, was the unanimous choice and he'll be our chair for the coming year. We went over the annual report and another report, but I'm not gonna go into any of that today. In terms of Arbor Day, nothing like kids to make the rest of the world balance out. In keeping with our tradition, that Karen told me about last year, this is my second year with children from Creative Environment Day School on East Genesee. You know, a little bit different than I expected. I expected 2 groups of toddlers, 5 of them, and there were 25 kids and 8 adults. We were outside. We had a wonderful time. My storybooks were not quite the hit, but we had a lot of discussion. I brought in sensory materials, buds, branches, bark, and blossoms. But they really liked my hand puppets with my little monkey sitting in the tree. And then we danced in the wind as trees. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and this was mentioned at the last meeting, Karen, we have a whole drawer full of these now. These are the historic Fayetteville Trees walking tours. I put a pile of them up front, and we have a drawer full. Yeah, so one for Mary. Materials that I have accumulated over time for our tree work were stored in our copy room today. Dick, who's the chair, and Leanne and I are setting up the first meeting, and that should be coming very soon. And I think that other than the Gage House is having a Mother's Day brunch on May 11th, that's all for me tonight.
Two things. I hadn't had the opportunity to talk about, we had the Easter egg hunt on the day before Easter. We planned on doing that over at the senior center, and we started outside. I say we started, we had everything set up and everything went
When I
very well.
left, it was so nice out
Yeah,
there.
it was when you left, Mike. You took the good weather with you. But anyway, and I want to say, I know Mary Teskey's not here tonight, but she actually presented me with a radar, so I knew exactly what was going on, and she should, because her husband's the weatherman. And it was one of those things that I looked at the radar and I said, oh my God, we are not going to be out here, because we had major storms coming through the way it looked. We didn't really experience them as much as we could have, but we moved them immediately indoors, and all the kids had a great time. It was wonderful. Thank you for everyone who showed up to help. I appreciate it. Danny, we always have, good to have you.
Well, I was gonna talk about it when I got to thanks, aren't we?
I know you would. That's why I got to jump on it. And thank you, Mike, for taking care of that. And as I said to my wife, I said, you know, doing the Easter egg hunt is the kind of thing that really gets you in the mood for the season, because the little kids are really what it's all about. And I really got to say that. That really does bring a big smile to your face. The other thing was something that happened to me today. I received notification from New York Conference of Mayors that I have been appointed to their Energy, Environment, and Technology Policy Committee, which is really, from my point of view, a big deal. That will allow me to have a much tighter understanding of what's going on with policies in New York State, the different things that are being worked on by the legislature, and also by the different DEC, a variety of other things, DOT, you know, your State Department and things such as that, which will help us work with all of those. And so this is something was suggested to me by one of the mayors, because they knew what I had worked on and what my background was. And so they basically said, Mark, this would be perfect for you. You know, you really need, and so I offered my services, and it was really a pretty nice thing. For me, it's sort of like exciting. I'll get to see a whole different aspect. The other part is it's really nice to be able to work with different communities.
Yeah.
Because you get to see whole different aspect. That's why when we're talking about the budget, and I'm aware of certain communities whose taxes have just skyrocketed because they don't have choices. And it's really difficult when you look at that. And it's the kind of thing that we always have to keep in context for ourselves with our own residents. So that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Congratulations. That's good. Just very simple. Community garden is moving along. Bobby's gonna get the 2 beds ready to go. Still a lot to do. I don't even know what we're gonna plant or anything like that, but, the real gardeners will make those decisions. It's gonna provide the space for them and the support for them. Lori and I were on a phone call this morning with Department of State regarding our grant from them for our zoning update. And we had spoke with the program manager and the contract manager. Went through all of the basically process of reports that they're gonna need over the length of the project or the grant. And that we need to get the contract signed in a work program. We weren't ready to bring it to the board tonight. That was way too much, too fast. So we're gonna copy to everybody to review in advance and all that stuff. So you're not feeling like, what's this? This, in the meantime, we're moving forward with our zoning committee meeting to, you know, work out some details. And it's just to get things organized in a fashion that we can present it to the public. We're not looking at a public meeting until June or July. But what is gonna happen and what they're planning for, they are the consultants, what they're planning for in the month of May into June are these stakeholder group meetings. So if you know of anyone in your neighborhood or in the village who you think would enjoy and have something to add to a stakeholder group meeting, that would be awesome. You just send me their name and contact information. I'll bounce it right to EDR. They contact the people directly. I don't have anything to do other than to just facilitate, you know, emails back and forth. The purpose for these stakeholder groups, these meetings, they last about an hour, hour and a half, is for folks to come in and share their perspective of what they like and don't like, what's working, what's not working in the village. All of it is relative to zoning. It's not going to be about grant money or anything like that. It's more of, you know, this corner where it's residential and commercial is not working for the residents, you know, we need to, whatever it is. Too many parks, whatever people's perspective is, it's really important that the consultants can get to them one-on-one. They will coordinate folks into groups of, I don't know how many, 10 maybe. They don't want them to be so big that you can't talk, right? They're small, personal kind of set meeting sessions, so. Parks, we're trying to get a third quote to find out of the 3 quotes, which is the best company to take down the trees at Do Good Park before folks really start riding up there. And before they can do any of their new tricks.
So since you have 2 of the 3 quotes, correct? In your hand, can the board just, when we get the 3rd one, make a motion to accept up to the lowest bid, up to 5? So they want to get going, don't they?
Yeah,
Take these trees down.
Yeah,
And so when I make that motion that we would accept the lowest bid,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed the
$5,000
$5,000
that we
that we
have.
have to spend.
Bartlett is getting you the quote, correct?
Yeah.
yes,
for
I
our
can
gents-
make that motion to accept the best bid not to exceed $5,000.
So your second quote was already how much?
It was $100
Per tree. So we've got a $50 per tree and $100 per tree.
and then Bartlett will be 2 or 3 times that, more than likely,
And how many trees do we need?
Maybe 100.
roughly.
So we were just talking about the trees in Dugard Park that have to come down. So Lori asked and Jane made a motion, nobody seconded it just yet to accept. We have 2 bids right now. The 3rd one is already been asked for. We're just waiting to receive it. So we're made a motion to spend up to $5,000 to, or whatever we need to accept the lowest.
How many trees is that again? I know you just said it.
It's roughly 100.
Okay, sizes?
Range is anywhere from 6 to 12 inches in diameter.
Okay, gotcha.
I second.
All right, so moved and second, any other thoughts, questions or whatever? Because we just so we have to move on it as soon as we get that third quote before 2 weeks goes by. All in favor?
Aye.
If you don't, I mean, there's a certain, time limit too. If you don't get one and we only end up with two, what are we gonna do?
Well, I know, but you've
Quick.
already talked.
Yeah, I've
about
already
it, so we
talked to
know
these.
that-
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
They just didn't get it for
A
tonight's
lot of
meeting,
people
that's
say,
all.
a lot of people say, okay. The check's in the mail and then what?
Well, we will document that you requested it. If we don't receive it within a week's time or
Yeah.
less, then we should just proceed with
Okay with
whoever. And I think that's part of what our
Well, they
procurement
ask for 'em,
policy
they
allows
don't
for
check.
anyway,
Yep.
or we will make it what it allows. So that's fine. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Dan?
I got a whole bunch of things. I'm gonna do them in 3 minutes, so they're gonna be fast.
Go.
Grocery store.
We got a decision from the New York State Court of Appeals.
Still,
Yep,
So what did, someone told me that they read that we won. Someone, a lawyer told me that he read it in some kind of law journal or
It
something.
was a mistake.
No, he must have read about an
The first one,
earlier
maybe.
decision.
the
Huh?
appellate division
Okay.
recently issued a letter.
Is that what it was, the appellate division
Stating the
decision?
request should be denied. But the New York State Court of Appeals
Yeah.
issued its letter.
You can take that away from me.
That's a drag.
No, go ahead, you still got it.
Okay, Ted, there's a great article in, for you and probably Lori in the, magazine this week. I looked for, Mark's picture and all the pictures, but, he wasn't, I couldn't find him at the meeting. There's a good one on, whether, on what we talked about before about potholes or, things. Sidewalk broken,
Got it.
and it doesn't specifically have to be me that put the notice in, something like that, so you would
Okay.
understand there's a lot of legal stuff.
Thank
Okay,
you.
grocery store, Ted, I got that. Tree report, do we have any tree reports?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by a tree report?
Well, the report where the guy went through the village and did that one.
I have the inventory.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay,
That's copy on the front.
Yep.
Okay.
can you,
Thank you.
put that out for us? Thank you.
So
Mark
there's,
just reminded me that the company has the community forest management plan. Lori made a copy and it's in the office, in the area where we have some of the other reports, in that corner. So
Okay.
that's the one that's gonna be more interesting than
Easter egg,
what Bobby has is just a bunch of data.
Easter egg, thank you very much, Mark. Nice decision to get inside.
I didn't think I had a choice at that
You had
point.
great- You had great helpers in Michelle and Corey. They did a great job.
You're correct about that.
So they, both Michelle and Corey from the DPW. So that's very good. Next, the senior center, has 345 members. They have 39 people that responded to their asking for donations for. I don't know how to get the word out to everyone in the village, but anybody can donate. You don't have to be a member. They've got a $35,000 goal. They have $20,000 by 39 out of 300. That's 12% of the people that. Okay. Also, the New York State Canal, 200 years, 24 more than Ledger Dyke. Or Ledger Canal. And they are having their annual boat float. I put this up there. Is there anybody still watching? It's been a long time. I know it's a long time to be watching. But the boat float and folk festival is June 14th. It's a fun time if you're a kayaker, and a lot of people I know are kayakers. I'll try to get more of these and spread them around in different places. So if anybody knows a kayaker that's looking for something to do on June 14th, which happens to be Flag Day, have a good time. I think that's it. Is that 3 minutes?
You made it, yes, you did.
Lori or Ted, anything, or you good? Then, Just a couple of quick things, just because of the budget and things like that that we passed and some of the discussions we had today on needs and grants and different things in general. And Dan just asked about the grocery store. So I've said this before and I'll say it again, that, you know, due to, lawsuits against the village for the grocery store that have gone to all the available courts to be heard, has cost the village over $100,000. That money could have been used perhaps in other types of things that we are talking about tonight that we're looking for grant money for. That's something that we don't have control of. That's part of the freedoms of America, and I appreciate that and that ability for people to be able to do those things that they feel they need to do. But that is stress on the village in general, that kind of an expense. The other side of that is, of course, the tax dollars that might have been generated if that had been a grocery store for the last 2 years or so, as opposed to being vacant property. So that being said, it's just something that a challenge I just pointed out as part of our challenges as we go forward, and we're looking for money for the things that we need for this village and how we approach it, where we look for it. It doesn't always have to be tax dollars. It can be grants, and that's what we are interested in looking for and going forward. The other thing that I want to mention, the last thing, it's been a long time, was I did have a meeting with Will Nicholson, who has been appointed, as Casey said, to the chairman of the police committee. We talked mainly about the deer culling program. But the police and other issues came up, of course, just in general, town, village, all that kind of stuff. And he pointed out something that I hadn't really given much thought to, nor did I question it, but the task force that was at the town center to catch the shoplifters during the holiday season, with all that time that those officers spent doing that, were incorporated into their normal workdays. So it did not really cost the taxpayers any additional money to have that task force in operation during that time. And so I thought that was good information just to share with people, because I never really thought about it that way, that it would be an extra cost. I also said
Was it successful?
it was successful, I believe. And I also shared with him that I thought it was beneficial to our village, even though the town center is not in our village, to show shoplifters, not that maybe they would go in some of our little shops to shoplift as opposed to like Kohl's, but it would help the community in general to know that that presence was out there and that our police force was on task of taking care of those types of situations and had a good plan in place to do that and show that.
Yep.
So, well, that's all I have. You can make a motion to adjourn.
So.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Thank you.